I'm Stephanie Geyer-Stevens, and as a point of clarification, I'm from the United States. Francoise Pommaret is from France.
And Bhutan. And Bhutan.
And Bhutan, excuse me. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Francoise, also known as Tashiom in Bhutan, and I've been doing research here for the past 35 years. And we would like to stop here our presentation and start the paper. Thank you.
I can't believe you put that on the screen.
Yes.
You are such a joker. Okay, I get to read today, so bear with me, and we've done our best to keep within time. Vajrayāna Buddhism has a unique trait which has been well articulated by Jeffrey Samuel in Civilized Shamans. It allows Buddhist beliefs and shamanic practices to coexist in a sort of harmonious way for the benefit of society. In Bhutan, this is particularly obvious in the community rituals, which take place all over the country. It's also quite evident in the role that some people, especially women, play as divine messengers. These women are called by different names: Pamo, Nyeljum, Rizam, and also Delog. Nowadays, some are referred to by the honorific Buddhist term, Khandro. These women carry messages from the deities to humans when they have problems, using divination techniques to advise them. They're healers of the family or community, and their efforts reestablish a harmonious order. The Delog seems to have a specific shamanic trait in the sense that they travel to the netherworld and come back from it, like the Siberian or Mongol shamans travel to the sky and come back. Following up on the research of Francoise between 1980 and 84, we decided to revisit the Delog some 30 years later. This paper will first examine the Delog, then we'll turn to the other women practitioners in Bhutan which have shamanic traits and who also operate in the context of Vajrayāna Buddhism. They definitively represent one of the specificities of Vajrayāna Buddhism. The different terms used to refer to them, or which they call themselves, perfectly demonstrate this ambivalence. But first, let's talk about the Delog. Delog are women who travel to the hells, and they return to bring messages to the living. Their messages are intended to teach Buddhist practice, particularly in relation to death, and to offer living relatives of the dead an opportunity to help their dead relatives become free from the hells. Excuse me. Therefore, the Delog are also, I'm sorry, is this on reverb, the microphone? Is there something going on with the microphone? No, we're okay. Okay. Therefore, the Delog are a unique combination of shamanic practitioners who are also Buddhist and who play an active role in the lives of Buddhists in Bhutan as religious advisors based on their shamanic experience. The Delog can partly trace their roots to both Indian and Chinese influences. However, one must also take into account the indigenous beliefs of Inner Asia, and especially the Turco-Mongols, where the trip to the realm of the dead was practiced by shamans. The birth of the Delog phenomenon is certainly due to a confluence of beliefs from different populations, including pre-Buddhist Tibetan beliefs. From the biographies, it's known that the Delog came in their great majority from the Nyingmakpa and the Kagyupa milieu. One of the dominant aspects of the Delog stories is the place given to the cult of Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva who saves beings from the realms of reincarnation. The Delog see themselves as his incarnations, and Om Mani Padme Hum, the formula in 6 or 7 syllables, punctuate the narratives. Whereas the Bardo Dodrol is a death ritual which gives theoretical explanations in a literary style, difficult for the ordinary layman to understand, The dialogue texts are full of concrete examples and images, and their style is popular. Here is the raison d'etre of these biographies. Far from being an esoterical teaching, dialogue biographies are a religious teaching intended for the people. Within them, the two fundamental notions of Buddhism, karma and reincarnation, are developed in order to be easily understood by each and every person. Francoise' research in Nepal and Bhutan led to the discovery that a few dialogues still existed in peripheral regions, far from centralized powers, and they seem to be only women, while men, albeit rare, do appear in the historical tradition. This research also showed that the modern-day dialogue did not travel to the netherworld only once, as the biographies let us suppose, but at regular intervals during sessions. In fact, these dialogue were akin to shamans, but shamans who had been Buddhicized in such a way and for such a long time that they'd lost the memory of their shamanistic origin. They were dozing shamans, to quote the great anthropologist Philippe Sagan. After an initial crisis or sudden illness which caused their first death and travel to the netherworld, the dialogue died for several hours on auspicious days of the Buddhist calendar and visit hells. The dialogue is the person who can deal with a world which ordinary beings cannot reach. But the function of the dialogue goes beyond being a messenger between the living and the dead. As a woman, she's seen as being close to ordinary people's worries, and she can advise the living on problems affecting them personally or affecting their community. She exhorts them to behave in the right and appropriate way, and thus she becomes a restorer of the social order. Death management and restoring the social order, coupled with traveling to the netherworld, are usually associated with the shaman's role. It must, however, be stressed that the modern dialogue are not aware of this shamanistic underlayer, and they're totally set in their Buddhist beliefs. This is reinforced by the fact that the biographies of the dialogue of the past, which they often know through oral transmission, totally obliterated any shamanistic aspect. In these biographies, the discourse was controlled by the Buddhist religious ideology. As women on the fringes of Buddhism, the dialogue do not threaten the established religious order or interfere with the monks' functions in soteriological rituals. They respond and soothe in a simple way people's anxiety about their dead relatives. Buddhists and shamans, this fundamental ambiguity of the dialogue, which they are not even aware of, is probably one of the factors that's allowed them to survive. So in 2014, Francoise went to eastern Bhutan, where she'd met two dialogue in 1982. One of them had died, but the other is now 57 years old and lives in Trashayangse district. She was the same humble, poor, and frank woman. The dialogue sees her role as a duty, and she continues to advise people on their life problems, but also advises them in regards to their dead. Francoise had also heard about a new dialogue in Trashigang and went to meet her. There she found a reluctant dialogue. She was 9 years old when she became sick and went wild. When she was 23, her body shook and she automatically did the gesture of Shenre Zig and started reciting Mani. She refuses to be a dialogue, however, although she's convinced she is one. People call her Jomo or Pamo, although she does not go into the Pamo usual trance, but instead she wears their particular crown when people come for advice and divination. Chenre Zig instructed her to wear it, but he also authorized her not to be a dialogue if she didn't want to be. As Francoise wrote 35 years ago, we're not interested to know if they actually die or not. That's not the focus of our inquiry. We're interested in what they believe, what people think about them, and their role in the community.
Sorry to interrupt you, 5 minutes more.
5 minutes. Okay. The dialogue, sorry, go ahead. Okay. People from all walks of life lit up in their conversations with us about the religious practitioners called Delog Nyenjum or Rizam. Their family consulted a Nyenjum every year, they told us, or there was a certain Rizam they would go to for advice regularly. The stories we heard about these women made us wonder if they were really Delog, if they were performing the same task that we understood a Delog to perform, or if there was something entirely other that they were doing. Skip that? Yeah. The whole thing? Okay. We're not going to tell you about the Nyenjum. We're going to tell you about going back to Paro in 2012, where we had in 2012 previously together interviewed a Delog, and we were very curious about the fact that at that time she'd called herself Kandroma, which, as far as Francoise knew, was a very exalted term that a woman cannot bestow on herself, but that has to be bestowed on her by a person of great authority. It often refers to a woman who's a consort of a very high lama or other enlightened being. And we wanted to know, how did she come about being called this? Was it a term bestowed upon her, or had she taken it for herself? Maybe the definition of Kandrum was changing, and if so, a kind of semantic shift might be underway. So the Delog in Paro explained to us that the Delog differ from Kandroma in that Kandroma are recognized by high authorities, and in fact she was recognized by the Je Kempo. She also explained to us the difference in what Kandroma do versus what lamas do to help people. Lamas teach, she said, they tell through books and other kinds of spiritual solutions, while the Kandroma tell through the minds. She said that by looking at someone's mind, she can tell what she needs to teach. Punaka? So then we went to Punaka to meet the Punaka Rizam, because word on the street was that she was the reincarnation of the Delog Namge Chosam, and people were starting to seek her out. We found she's dealing as best as she can with ongoing bouts of illness. Our visit was interrupted when the Rizam had a kind of seizure. She began to talk with a different voice, and her stomach growled deeply. At that point, we decided it was best for us to give her a chance to rest and make our departure. But as we left, there was already another group of people on their way up the path to her house, hoping to see her. We'd collected a great deal of information at this point about how the various terms Delog, Rizam, Kandrum, Nenjum are applied, by whom, and in what circumstance. But in the meantime, we'd found out about another Rizam that people were calling Kandrum. After we were escorted into her room, she set out on straightening us out on the use of the word Kandrum and told us specifically that she is not that. We plugged away with questions. Did she actually die and go to the hells? She didn't think so. The Rizam was interrupted at various times by some kind of possession that made her stomach growl in the most profound way. She made it clear she was happy. We're interested in the hells. People these days don't have that much interest in the hells anymore, she says. I didn't know what category to put her in given the choices. Is she Delog? Not really. Nyenjum? I suppose, partly. These interviews have drawn us into a deeper story of the world of the shaman realm in Bhutan, clearly alive, well, and perhaps even more central than it was. Not at all what I had expected to learn. Sorry? Oh, skip Thimphu? Okay. On time. All right. In Bhutan.
No, that's a conclusion. That's our conclusion.
Here.
Yes.
Yes, we agree. We're on the conclusion. In Bhutan, the divine messengers category is a fluid one in people's perception, and it might be pointless to try to define each of them with a Western mind. They all present the same pattern of shamanic traits, but they are all a part of Vajrayāna, which from the beginning embraced non-Buddhist characters and allowed them to live inside the religious framework. The conversion of local pre-Buddhist deities, which is a main trope in Vajrayāna, allowed their human representatives such as Nyenjum, Jomo, and Palmo to exist inside the Buddhist culture and address the daily problems of the people. The Delog take their authority not from local deities, but from Avalokiteshvara. But because of their spiritual legitimacy, Delog can also address people's worldly concerns. The difference between the divine messengers lies mainly with the identity of the supernatural being who's their tutelary deity.
I'm sorry, time is up.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation.